Hello everybody. The video today is about the starter set we've just launched, which is also themed. It's called like Shadowdark but with tactics, and we'll come on to why it's called that at the moment. It's on itch.io and also www.shadowdark.org, our Wix website. It's free, pay what you like, suggest £15, no big deal because it's playtesting, so just download it for free if you wish. I've also got a very nice email from the Arcane Library because I just wanted to clear the title with them from the assistant librarian, saying it looks fun. Well, I hope it's fun, but we'll explain now what it's about. So I will just bring on here we go, bring on here and put to view to full screen. Can't remember how to do that, never mind. What it is many people have said that Shadowdark is like the Moldavay basic set. But then what is the advanced Dungeons and Dragons version of it? Because modern day 5.5 edition, 6th edition if you want to call it, is completely incompatible with Shadowdark. They come from different worlds. Shadowdark has some modern mechanics, D20 mechanics like advantage, disadvantage, but basically it goes back to the old school 2nd edition hit points. Rather than the 3rd edition. Well, of course, 3rd edition introduced D20, which of course Shadowdark has, but in all other regards, it was a complete reset of the game. Shadowdark goes before that. It also rejects some things from 3rd edition, like skills and so on, and all of the splat book powers that crept in even from 1st edition. They're almost completely gone. They are talents, but they're much weaker. You have a much stronger martial spellcaster divide. And here we've just got some quotes about Shadowdark. Most recently, Mark Merle. Shadowdark is D&D with all of the crap taken out. Yeah, absolutely correct. That's the reason it's so popular. Derek Melinda. But Shadowdark is mechanically boring. If you're a warrior, you can do nothing on your turn except swipe your sword. If you're a spellcaster, nothing against cast your spell. That can get wearying if you're playing day on day, week on week, as opposed to a one shot. Now, people of course have carried out campaigns for 1 or 2 years now. If you notice Sly Forest's campaign, though, he said each player got through an average of 3 or 4 characters over that time. So I think there's something lost there in terms of character advancement and survivability. Here's a recent email from Esper the Bard's survey on his website. 30% of his players think D&D 5.5 is too complicated. 40% think it's too simple. So, Shadowdark gets it right in the simple parts, but I think they're leaving stuff on the table. You're leaving that inability to undertake quick and dirty, to undertake tactical actions and choose on each turn how you advance your character, as opposed to rolling dice. Kelsey Dion has said she likes rolling dice because she doesn't want people to come too attached to their characters. But I think there is a large amount of the old school that doesn't want to become too attached to their character because playing the game is more important. But I think that there are many schools of groups in the D&D and RPG community, and I think the majority do become attached to their character. It becomes an other extension of themselves. So what we're doing here is developing a simple game in the spirit of Shadowdark, black and white rule book in digest size, less than 200 pages long, uh, um, that has that spirit, that has a spirit of simplified rules, every word mattering, but allowing for customization of characters and tactical choices every turn. Now, this is a simplified version of my own game, Shatterheart, which is available on www.shatterheart.org. Your characters are 100% compatible. All the monsters and spells from Shatterheart system are 100% compatible. You can also use any old school essentials asset. Might need to make a couple of small adjustments, which we'll come on to. One to hit points, the other to armor class, because armor class works slightly differently in this game, but they're very easy. You can do the conversion, two calculations in about 10 seconds, and there you can use any monster from any monster manual. That's prior to third edition. Third edition onwards, you could also convert them as well. You just have to reduce the hit point bloat. So there are many similarities in terms of the mechanics. Shatterheart with Shadowdark, it uses modern D20 mechanics like D20 roll high with advantage, disadvantage, or called edge and hindrance in this system. It uses one attack per turn, no subclasses, no bonus actions. So it's all based, the whole theme of Shatterheart is based on speeding combat, speeding play, but it introduces a number of other mechanisms to speed play, which I think are very compatible with the Shadowdark type system. And it also retains a few things that Dungeons and Dragons players are familiar with, such as saving throws, which is important because I think it's wrong that a 20th level character is just as vulnerable to, say, a breath weapon or any other area attack weapon as a first level character. Now, your saving throws, or what they're called repel and resist rolls in this game, to be a bit more precise against an immediate effect and a persistent effect. It gives that player agency. So let's have a look now on more precisely on how Shatterheart's system, which this simplified game is different. As I said, it shares the core dice mechanic as Shadowdark, but the key thing is advantage or disadvantage stacks. It's like Dragonbane in this, in that if you have more than one advantage and a d6, so if you have edge, you roll 2d20, you keep the highest, opposite for hindrance. But if you have double edge, which you can easily have in this system, particularly from critical hits, which works slightly differently, you had 2d6. So that really lifts the level of success. It also has a modern level of success system, which we'll come on to here, and an escalation dice. So, for example, if you roll equal to or one more than the to succeed number, then you have a partial success, which means you have half damage. If you have 5 or higher, you have a crit 1. If you have 10 or higher, you have a crit 2. If you roll a natural 20, that adds 1 to your degree of success, whatever it is. If you roll 10 or less than the succeed number, you have a critical fail. If you roll a natural 1, that takes 1 off, exactly like Pathfinder, your degree of success system. And that means, so let's say, for example, you've got a 2 succeed of 8, and you roll 18. That means you're crit 2, which is triple the damage. And like Dungeons and Dragons, you had all the bonuses except one exception, which isn't in the basic game. Deadly damage if you and you triple it. So let's say you've got a long sword rolling d8, you got a bonus of 2 from your strength, 1 for your proficiency because you're third level. So you roll 5 plus 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you triple that, 16, 24 damage, bam. You know, that's a big chunk of damage. It's not going to take down an ogre, but it's 2/3 of an ogre in a single strike. So and there's an escalation dice. So let's say that was your third turn, you'd be doing 10 damage. base damage, 30 damage on a crit 2. So that it really levels up, increases, especially at in later turns. So it's rare that a combat would last more than 3 turns, and turns move quickly because you're only doing one attack. You're effectively replacing a crit multiplier system with a multiple attack system. Now in Shadowdark you can move, attack or heal only once per turn, and you only have one roll per turn. So at the beginning of your roll you have repel rolls for casting off conditions like slowed. So let's say you roll a repel roll and that's 14. That's your roll for your entire turn. Let's say the roll was 3. Oh, you failed your repel roll for your entire turn, but you can't act. Or you could act, but you're just slowed. This really speeds play. The other way it speeds play, I mean, there are many other things. We use a blitz clock, for example, or really the GM can call a random encounter if the group is just pissing around for 20 minutes, not deciding what to do in a dangerous area. The other way is a Professor Dungeon Master trick, which is if the whole entire party moves together, which forces them to have a plan and enact across it. Really speeds things up. Now there's no randomness in character creation. You have the modifiers only, not the raw attributes. There's only 4 attributes. Let's go back to the book and go to the character creation area. There we go. Okay, it's all on 2 pages ready for character creation. 4 attributes only, which are here we go. Beef, jock, geek and Riz, which are fairly self-explanatory, and the game is very well balanced, so they're each equally important. Beef adds to your physical attacks and damage, and your squish points, equivalent of hit points. Jock adds to your avoid, which is taken off attacks that you can actively defend against, and adds to ranged attack, damage, and to strike or to shoot. Geek is brain power. It adds to many skills that involve brain power, and it also increases your focus points. That's how many special powers and abilities you can use before a sleep rest. Riz is your presence. It's also effectively the power of your personality and will, so affects the amount that you get healed by every increases. So that means that each of these are about equally important. There should be no dump stacks in the system. Also, you choose them with an array. You can have several choices of array depending on whether you want some attributes to be very low or more even, but the basic one, the one most people will use, is +2, +1, 0, 0. Whereas a commoner will have 0, 0, 0, 0 if they're adult, and if they're young or older, they'll have some negative values. And each of these directly map to a saving number called an attribute modifier, as opposed to the attribute, and that is that plus your level bonus. So at level 1 it's 0, at level 2 it's +2, at level 5 it's +3, so +2, and so on all the way up to level 20. You don't need to worry about these if you're level 1. They're exactly the same as your attributes. And then you basically write down the numbers that are given to you by your lineage, which is your race, and your class, and that's it. And you start with a pre-packaged set of equipment for your class. So in a starter box, you can get going very quickly. You can start in less than 10 minutes a character. Or you have to need to write down a few numbers like your speed based on your species and so on, because the system does use grid-based combat occasionally, not not just near far all the time. I mean, that's for the majority of encounters, simple encounters, you can do that, but it allows you to use grid-based combat and has rules based around that, because it's a tactical game. Tactical games require things like flanking, ganging up, etc., attacking from behind, differences for your where you're facing forward, and so on. Now let's go on now to talk about lineages. Lineages are the different species, and each species has four traits. Four traits are special things a character can, a lineage can do, or a boost to certain skills, or even certain abilities, unique abilities they have. Humans are the easiest. They have boosts to various different types of skills, like they're better at lying, they're better at intimidation, they're better at trading, they're good at perception than other lineages. If you look at dwarves, for example, they're good at artificing, they're resistant to poison, they're resistant to being knocked back and knocked over. They can use dwarven crossbows, which are more powerful uniquely. Elves have all the classic abilities, like they're acrobatic, they're resistant to being charmed or possessed. They're immune to sleep. They only need to sleep 4 hours a night, and they have very sharp eyesight, not night vision. Dwarves and gnomes are the only classes that have night vision. That's slight variant from Shadowdark, because well, they live underground, but it's weak. It's weak. You know, they can only see 6 grid squares, whereas a drow, you can't be a drow player character because they have these special powers. Any race lineages with special powers are excluded from being a player character. Drow can see 20, so you're really up against it. And we've got 10 basic lineages, including a few that are specifically from the Vanna setting, like Neanderthals, big and burly. They fit the role of Goliaths in D&D. You can have goblins, kobolds, not in the starter set. You can use there's another 13 lineages in the starter set. You can have orcs. Yay! You can have orcs. And orcs have the special abilities you could expect, like brutal weapons and so on, and gaining temporary squish points when they charge into battle. Champignons are fun. Champignons have no vital organs, so they're immune to critical hits, and they basically just bounce when you throw them off a cliff. It's great fun playing a champignon, but they are vulnerable in other ways. Leverets are fun. They're basically tricksters, vegetarian tricksters. Furbin take the role of the dragonkin. Dragon blood or god blood or devil blood, fiend blood. Too powerful for their characters, so we have exceptions for each. Like the exceptions for tieflings are fawns. Fawns are really horny and have special powers in that regard. For example, they can carouse all night without sleeping and still get the sleep rest recovery. And you can have half lineages like a half orc. You can mix any of, you can't mix animal and vegetable, but most of the humanoid ones you can mix half and have, because there are 4 abilities, 2 of one and 2 of the other. In the full rule set, each of the lineages will have a once a day get out of jail free type ability. Not in this set because it's a starter set, but if you go to the full set, you can have those special once a day abilities. It has a skill system. In fact, one of the main reasons it has a skill system is everything is done through a skill. Like you attack with a weapon-based skill. Basic skills are universal skills that all characters have. And spell genre skills allow you to cast in a certain spell school. So you might have a certain level. Trained in mentalism and illusion. Trained gives you the ability to cast magic in that spell school. So you don't have to have training in most skills, like most weapon skills, to use a weapon, but you will get the -2 on trained dis. Dis is a disadvantage, a reduction based on circumstances. So you get the -2 dis if you have if you're not trained level. There are some skills that you need to have that trained level in order to do it successfully, rather than just thrashing around, such as swimming, for example. Where to float you need to have trained level. You need to be trained in your language skill to write it, otherwise all you can do is speak it. You need to be trained in riding and wrangling to ride a horse and punch it and ride it in a direction, otherwise it will simply be pulled by other horses in your group. So and then if you use and practice a skill which you haven't used before, and you keep failing and you keep trying, because skill advancement is diegetic, you can do it either in game or by training in downtime, we call adventuring mode. By spending money, you can advance your skills as you level, or if you spend a large amount of time in downtime, or a large amount of in failed attempts in play to advance your skills. You can also only try a skill twice, and that applies to the party. So let's say you've got a really slippery, difficult wall. One player says, well, I'm on a skill, so I'll try it. They fail, fall to the bottom. Now, they've only got a second chance in that skill, in which case they might give it to a ranger who is skilled +1 to make sure that they have a better chance of succeeding on this. So there are various weapon groups, and you can get skilled in a weapon group, such as martial bows or crossbows. Warriors are skilled in all martial weapons, are trained in all martial weapons, and skilled in 2 groups. And as I said, there are these spell genre skills, such as necromancy or arcane magic or esotericism and sorcery. I can't remember. I think there are 12 or so. So there are huge choice of spell genres, and each spell it applies to one or more spell genres, but there's some big splits. So, for example, there are many spells, divine spells especially, that simply aren't available to wizards, and vice versa. So you really need to choose carefully. Now let's come on to classes, and classes is the heart of the game, really. And what we really wanted to do is make sure each was an archetype. So the cleric really had the classic cleric spells, and you don't mess with these archetypes by having horrible things like multi-classing or subclasses, which blur the division between, for example, warriors and wizards. There are some classic archetypes that do blur them, such as paladins and, for example, and but this is the crucial thing: they have very specific abilities that are limited. So paladins will always heal far worse than a cleric or a druid, and some positive abilities that are very unique to that archetype, but very specific to it, like the spite for the paladin. So we have 10 classes, and in Shadowdark they basically fill a page too if they're a caster. Half a dozen pages, one of which is a picture. So, but they're all pretty simple. As you'd expect, it specifies what armor and weapons they can use and are skilled in. it gives level 1 abilities. So at level 1, Anchorite, which is our name for monks. Don't like the name monk. A monk can be a priest. It's not distinct enough. So Anchorite, and it's a bit less Orientalist. So for example, you do extra damage on with your hands, and you don't suffer the -2 that you do for being untrained with your hand, which all other classes they begin at -2. They can move on their off turn, which means they're highly elusive, up to half their speed. And every other level you get an innate ability, which is something that's always on, an ability. And every other level you get a fighting ability. And a fighting ability, well, they replace bonus actions. You make an attack plus a fighting ability. There are some fighting abilities that are available to all classes, like dodge, for example. They're basically tactical maneuvers. Fighting ability will always cost an action point. And there are some that are specific to a class. Like Shattering Strike here, if you choose it, you attack the defender's armor, or shuriken, throwing a bunch of shuriken like a ninja. Innate abilities include things like Bullseye, which is you always use a thrown weapon like a spear or a shuriken at edge. An edge is at advantage. So you can, as you level up, it's a very simple leveling up table. There's no dead levels. You always get from level 2 onwards either innate or a fighting ability. At some levels you get increases to your basic to one of your abilities. At some levels you get a level proficiency buff, which applies to all your attacks, your avoid, defense, and all your repel and resist rolls, like saving throws. And depending on whether you're a half caster or a fighter, you will get an automatic leveling up ability every level or every other level. And if you're a caster or half caster, you will learn new spells, or for full casters you will gain cantrips as well. So for example, here for the Anchorite, you've got Wuxia Fall, which means when you fall you can run up the wall and slow your speed, or Wuxia Leap, which is just a huge leap distance. And here Leaping Lotus Kick, which means you can kick at the end of a Wuxia Leap and just cause walloping amounts of extra damage, add your size to your damage. And I'm not going to go through every class, but every class really is just as fun and just as customizable. And you have simple versions of the classic class abilities, such as Rage, Burst Hands, and so on. In the full game these level up, so after level 4 you will get extra damage from raging, extra damage from burst kick, extra damage from a smite, extra abilities you can do with a smite, etc, etc. As you might imagine, in a starter set, that's all simplified. So we'll come on to briefly action, and we call it action rather than combat because it doesn't have to be action. It's basically when you're counting 10-second turns. It's any tense situation. So we'll come on to here, the action section. Why can't I just click here? There we go. Now the basic golden rule of the game is one roll. So as I said, it's one roll per turn that you make. Now you can make a move, and you can make one other action, including one strike or one heal, etc. So it's basically a 2-action economy. In the full game it's a 3-action economy, but it's simplified here. It's a 2-action economy. You move and attack, or you heal and attack, or heal and move. Simple. And you're always making that choice. Choice is especially important for clerics, because clerics are flexible support and other support classes. Are they going to support like bards? Are they going to support? Are they going to attack? So that's the great tactical choice that they have to do. But they can only roll once. If they attack, they can attack with a fighting ability or a class ability to boost their attack. And they use up focus points. They get 3 at first level. Um, um, and and they gain as they gain in levels. You use them up. You can use poker. We use poker tokens, for example, and you get 1 back after a short rest, or back after a sleep rest. Um, and you can recharge them. So if you score a critical, you get 1 back. Um, Wizards with their staff called Arcanus Cora can actually store them up. So if they score 3 criticals in a with spellcasting, they get 3 extra if they have a staff that can hold 3. They don't hold 3 at first level. They can only hold 2, I think, at first level, and then another 1 at 4th level. So they have a limited ability to store up focus points. So this is the resource management system. It's not vanity and magic. However, like Shadowdark, you do have a chance of casting a spell of losing it until a sleep rest if you have a critical fail, not any fail, a critical fail, remember, which is 10 under or a natural 1. So over an adventuring day, you might lose 2 spells out of your 4. So it's not quite as brutal as Shadowdark, where you might lose all your spells on your first encounter if you roll badly, because you got a 50% chance of so 1 in 6 adventures you'll lose all your spells in the first round of combat, which is brutal. It's not quite as brutal. You use your focus points as your resource. And they also act as exhaustion points. So if you go down to 0, you can only act once and you're slowed, you're at half speed. So be very careful using that last exhaustion point, because you might lose it to avoid a total party wipeout. You always try to keep hold of that last focus point. Unless it's the last thing in the world that you're going to do, and that adds a real tension to the game. Also, the use of an escalation dice from 13th age at second turn onwards. You turn it, and you add +1 and +2 on the 3rd round, and so on. These 2 things really add tension. The other is when you die, you don't roll in terms of the number of rounds you have before you die. You bleed out if you've been knocked by a piercing or slashing weapon, and you die in a minute. And you put a stress dice down, and that acts as -1, -2, -3 each turn to any attempt or roll by a character using either magic or first aid, what we call tend to injuries, because first aid is a modern term. If you tend to injuries to stench the bleeding. So you have a choice. There's none of this arbitrariness about how long somebody is going to die. You might leave it a couple of turns to fight and not open yourself up to opportunity attack as you turn your back and then go to heal somebody. You've got a choice. And it's really tricky to decide when you're going to save your friend and colleague and when you're going to fight to the death. There's none of that capriciousness about rolling a death dice and rolling 1 and you die and there's no chance for anybody to save you. So that is basically it. There are no spells and no monsters in this book, because you can use any old school spell, or you can use the Shatterheart spells and Shatterheart monsters. I mean, there's a slight advantage to using the ones that are specifically designed for the game. The reason being is all the spells have a level of success system, like Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is a lot of fun, and all of the monster abilities have a level of success system as well, which is a lot of fun. And they also have tactics built in. They're designed to be fun, action orientated. That's the jargon, and so on. Just quickly, in terms of leveling up, it's as Shadowdark, only instead of getting XP for money, you get XP for spending money. Spending money is what, so you get so that encourages exploration, and it encourages world building in particular, and the agency of players. It uses the same darkness mechanic as Shadowdark, except that they more realistically they last half an hour, and you really have it uses the same simplified bulk system. You have 10 plus um, your beef value slots. You might only have 2 or 3 slots um, um, per player free. Each bag of coin is 100. Bag of 100 uses 1 slot. Because silver pieces are far more common in the game than gold pieces as treasure. And if you're martially trained, you get 2 extra slots. So let's say you're a fighter with level 1, you will have with beef of +2, so you will have 14 slots. You've already used 7 of them from all your equipment and armor, probably more if you've got heavy armor. So there's very little you can carry, and you might need to use, as in classic D&D, hirelings, which you tag along in order to carry the treasure out, or form a safe route and hire a company of dwarves to take it out. It all uses the Creative Commons system, by the way, and has its own two-sided specially designed character sheet, which in the PDF version, I'm just doing that at the moment, full automatically calculates all of these bonuses and so on, so you can make characters very quickly. Well, thank you very much. I really do hope you like this, and you download and you give us some feedback. Join our Discord community. Got to get that renewed and kicked off. Thank you very much. Bye.